Okay, welcome everybody. Welcome to our EPEW 2021, and we're happy that you're joining us today. I'm Julie Miller. I'm one of the committee members, the EPEW committee members, and I'll be moderating today's session. We are having a wonderful session with Courtney Longua, and she'll be presenting on creating a safe space for transgender and non-binary students. We will have you all on mute, but please know that you can ask questions. Courtney's happy to take questions as we go along. Please use the chat for comments. We're happy that this subject is being presented in our workshop this year. If you do any social media, please use the hashtags EPEW 2021 or EPEW family, because once you join us, you're part of our family. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Courtney now.
All right. Thank you, Julie. I appreciate that. And welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you were able to join today. I know you have a lot of options and it's summer, so I appreciate you taking the time to pop over here and join us. So as Julie said, I'm Courtney Longua. I use she, her pronouns. And we're going to be talking about how we can support our transgender and non-binary students, specifically in PE. So we'll start out in a very general sense, and then we'll end the session with really focusing on, okay, what does this look like in physical education? Also, as Julie said, if you have questions or thoughts, ideas you want to share, by all means, use the chat and pause me if we need to pause and kind of dig deeper into some topics. But as you can only imagine, this is a topic that we could go down various rabbit holes and could be hours and days long, right? So this is just the introduction to how we can support. And then if we want to build on it later, I'd love to either chat with you one-on-one, or we could do something else. So we can have our own team. I can't quite see our numbers, but if our numbers are low enough, I'd love to take a minute and have each of you just do a quick introduction, name, pronouns you prefer, and district or area that you are joining us from. That would be fantastic. So Julie already covered it. Andrea, I'm going to go with you, and then I'll just go down what it looks like on my screen, and people can go from there.
Yeah, definitely. Good morning, everyone. So happy all of you joined us this morning. My name's Andrea. I live and teach in LA, and I go by she, her. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Stephanie, you're up next.
Hey everybody, my name is Stephanie Sandino. I am a middle school phys ed teacher in Chino Hills, California. I also live in the Los Angeles area as well, and my pronouns are she, her.
Thank you. I have Ann Pauls-Neal, I believe, next.
Yes, hi, I am Ann. I use she, her pronouns, and I teach high school health and PE in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Nice, welcome. And next I have Kimberly O'Hara.
Hello, Kimberly Hada-Borowski, she, her, hers, and I am a 9th through 12th grade health teacher in Huntington Beach.
Awesome, thanks.
Hey, Stephanie.
I apologize. My last name's Longua. As you can only imagine, it was mispronounced all the time, so I apologize for mispronouncing yours. I'm going to do my best with our next one, which I'm going to say Herminio Gonzalez. I probably made a mistake. Yes. Yes.
He's translating.
Got it. Thank you for that. Okay. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear the interpreter?
I cannot.
You can't hear the interpreter?
No. I can see him.
Yes.
But you cannot hear the interpreter. You can't hear me speaking right now?
I'm sorry. I can hear you. Yes.
Okay, so I'm the interpreter. So, okay.
Oh.
Okay, hi. My name is Herminio Gonzalez, and I am a teacher for the School of the Deaf in Fremont. So I work with deaf students, deaf and hard of hearing students in my classroom, kindergarten through 10th grade.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I use pronouns he, him, his.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sorry for the confusion. Next person I have up is Ms. Camacho.
Hello, I am Sophia Camacho. I am in the Chicago area and I go by she, her.
Thank you and welcome from Chicago. Darcy, I have you up next.
Hi, I'm Darcy Kelly. I'm in Sacramento, California. I'm an adapted PE teacher. I go by she and her pronouns. And is that all the questions?
Yeah, yes, you nailed it. All right, and then I have Jennifer up next.
Jennifer, you're muted if you're speaking.
All right, well, that's all right. We'll move on. And if you want to share later, Jennifer, you may. I'm not gonna make you feel awkward. Okay, so here's our quick agenda. We've done our introductions. Thank you all of you for sharing your pronouns. Sometimes that's maybe the first time you've had to do that. So just trying to get us comfortable with doing that on a regular basis. We'll kind of talk about the why as we go through. So next thing we're gonna cover is language. And then we'll go on to our genderbread person. And then we're gonna do a little exercise and have a discussion with that. And then, as I said, we'll wrap up with specific PE applications and then finish with questions and answers. But as I said, we'll kind of throughout the discussion, throughout the presentation, if you have questions, let's talk about them at that time. So our first vocabulary, we're looking at the term cisgender. So that is someone who identifies with their sex assigned at birth. So if you were born and the doctor announced that you were a female and you identify as female, that is cisgender. Transgender is it's an umbrella term for many gender identities. But basically, bottom line is you don't identify with the sex that you were assigned at birth. And that, as I said, there are a lot of rabbit holes that, we're not going to go down. That's just kind of the overarching term that we're using. Gender identity, that's how someone internally feels about themselves. So they either have a sense of being male, female, but now we need to also be talking about some people don't feel either, right? Or they feel both or something in between. So gender identity is one's internal sense of self. And then this is the one that gets us tripped up sometimes because we think, oh, gender expression, this is what we see, right? So how someone expresses their internal identity through things like clothing or hairstyle, voice, body shape, all of those things. And this is why it's important to say, what pronouns do you prefer, right? Because we might see something, but that might not be the pronoun or, what box we put somebody in might not be exactly what they're feeling. And then sex assigned at birth, as I was saying, we have male, female, or intersex. This is based on genitalia and or chromosomes. And then sexual orientation. We also sometimes confuse gender expression and sexual orientation. So this is who someone's physically or emotionally or aesthetically attracted to. Doesn't necessarily have anything to do with whether they're transgender, cisgender, gender expression, that sort of thing. So I'm gonna give you each a minute to kind of look over this genderbread person before I speak and just kind of, I know it's a little bit hard to see, but hopefully. And if you have a phone and you want to scan that QR code, please do so. It will take you to the new version. There's a version 4.0, but I will tell you I didn't use it because it became super blurry and didn't think it was worth losing the ability to see it. So, but that will be on that QR code plus a lot more information. So as we see here, if we look at this brain, right, this is our identity. So up here, we're looking at gender identity. So it's basically on the left-hand side of that scale, feeling non-gendered, and then all the way over to the far right, either feeling very much like a woman or very much like a man. That's our gender identity. But there's also, these are, as it says, 5 of infinite possible combinations, right? So you can have our traditional man or woman man, two-spirit, but then we also have gender queer, genderless. So there is a range, and I think that's the main takeaway I want you to have from this, this, what would I call it? Well, picture, but it's got a better name than that. Is that with anything, so if we look at gender expression, right? So this is the whole, what are we seeing that we were just talking about on the last slide. There are tons of different possibilities that may be shown in someone's gender expression, and it may depend on the setting that they're in, right? You might have a different gender expression at school than they might have at home, right? Or in the workplace versus at a church or whatever it might be, right? Like this is constantly ebbing and flowing, depending for some people on the setting or their process. And then we talked about biological sex. Again, variety of options for that. And then if we look at the heart, right, we're looking at attracted. So that's where our, we're looking at a range of a person's attraction to either all females or just femininity or masculinity or male, like there's a range, right? Or both. So what I was just, if you see here, this says pansexual. So when we're looking at pansexual, that's really exploring like, okay, someone is attracted to not just male or female or both, but all of the in-between as well, right? So it's a much more inclusive term that is being used much more often from our younger generation these days. So I would like to pause and just take a minute. If you, after processing all of this, have some questions or thoughts that you'd like to share, I'd love to open it up. And you can put them in the chat or you can raise your hand or just unmute. I think we're small enough if you just want to unmute, that's also okay.
I would like to say something. Hello, Kimberly. I teach health education, and so I think a lot of people, especially adults, but also students, I feel like students are way more educated through the internet than adults, but a lot of people confuse gender identity and sexual orientation. And it's, yeah, I think that's where the confusion goes. And then what I found in my research around gender is we use the term sex for a lot of different contexts, like to identify sex assigned at birth and genitals. We use sex to, you know, the act of sex, and we use sexual orientation. So I feel like our language is growing, which is good. So it gives more context to different things. But a lot of adults who are very like judgy and, you know, see all these things on, you know, glamorized articles, you know, in the news, but people just get so confused because the terminology is very limited in the English language.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing. I wholeheartedly agree that we as adults have a lot of learning to do. And I think we're on the right path. We're here, right? And I am not all knowing. I am learning as well. And we've got to catch up with our kids, right? Because that's who this is all about, is supporting our students. So thank you for sharing. Anyone else want to add?
I wanted to chime in because it's such a huge conversation, and our kids I think, are way more accepting than most of the adults on my campus, without a doubt. But the process of talking about language was really difficult with my high ELL population. The presentation that I did on pronouns for my health classes, we translated into Spanish, we translated into Swahili. There's just a lot of pieces to even talk about pronouns and all of these different parts. So I'm glad that this session is here today. It was super timely for me too, and figuring out how to give my kids who are so accepting the language to help others be accepting.
Absolutely.
And
And I will share this presentation at the end. I'll share a link so you all will have access and can take whatever you want, can maybe use it with your staff, whatever you see fit.
And there was another question in the chat about what age group would it be appropriate to gather their preferred pronouns?
As young as we have them. They're using them, right? So if we have a student that's in kindergarten who identifies as, let's say, as a boy, but everyone keeps calling her she, her, that immediately is going to shut down that student, right? Because this is not a safe space for them to feel and connect. And if our kids aren't safe, they're not learning. So we're asking them, they know the language already. So we need to normalize it, right? Like, what pronouns do you prefer?
And Courtney, could you talk about the disconnect maybe between home and school? In that I had a student, he was noticeably, his behavior was very, I would say, depressed. You know, I was concerned, and I talked to his teacher, and she said that he actually was going through questioning his gender, but it was not allowed in his home. So I don't know how we bridge that gap.
Yeah, that is a challenge, but that's why I was saying sometimes gender expression or identity is different in one setting versus another, right? So by law, if a student identifies as a gender or has gender expression, whatever it is that is different than what it is at home, we are not allowed to share with home. Our job is to keep that student safe in what they present to us and support them in that on that journey. So that can be challenging, and that's where I'm not sure in the rest of the states or rest of the districts, even within California, we have in our district, and I'm in Mount Diablo Unified School District, where we have gender support plans. And so in that plan, then you sit down with the student and ask, okay, if here at school, you are wanting to be referred to as he, him, and it could even be a different name too, right? Like, I don't know, we'll say John. But at home, they're Joanne, she, her. And so when you make a phone call home, what pronouns? And that's where the student says, oh, if you're calling home, it's Joanne and it's she, her. And those conversations are so crucial, right? Because we need to protect them, especially in those settings where they're not supported at home, in order to keep them coming back to us and learning and becoming the amazing person that they will be. I see more in the chat, so I'm just going to pause for a second and let my awesome helpers let me know if there's anything else.
I think everyone's just having conversation, chiming in.
Okay. So I'm going to move on then, and then we'll have more time at the end.
Sorry, Courtney. Sorry to interrupt. Someone asked about if you have a template for the gender support plan that you just mentioned.
I don't have one linked to this, but I can get one that we can send out, or if they want to put their email in the chat, I can email them the plan.
Okay. We can also attach it to the resource doc, whichever is easiest for you.
I'll do whatever I'm directed to do. I'll do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to how does it feel? Okay, so this is where I'm going to need you all to be active, but first you just need to grab a pen or a pencil, some sort of writing utensil, and a piece of paper or something to write on. So I'll give you a minute to do that. All right, while people are finishing grabbing that, I want you to identify your dominant hand. If you are ambidextrous, I want you to put your pencil or your pen on the table in front of you or on something in front of you, and then reach for it. Whatever hand you reach for it with, we're going to call that your dominant hand. All right, so now what I want you to do is switch the writing utensil to your non-dominant hand. And this is my example. I want you to write your full name. So I would write Courtney Longua is my name. I'll give you a minute to do that. Okay, I just did it at the same time to give me an idea of how long it takes. So as you're finishing that up, the next sentence I want you to write is this feels, we're still with our non-dominant hand, and I want you to come up with 3 descriptors. So 3 adjectives, how does this feel? This feels amazing, this feels challenging, this feels, so 3 feeling words. If you want to be an overachiever, you can write 4 or 5, but at least 3. When you feel ready to move on, just look up at the camera so that I know. If your camera's not on for whatever reason, you can give a virtual thumbs up. That would be awesome. All right, so as people were mostly there, as people are finishing up, what I want you to do is switch the writing utensil to your dominant hand. And you're going to start back just Courtney Longua is my name, obviously your own name. And then give me this feels and 3 descriptors for this new one. Thank you, Stephanie. I was just about to say that. Once you are ready, either look at the screen or give me a thumbs up. Excellent. All right. So let's have a quick discussion about this. So anyone willing to share the three, let's go with non-dominant, the three feeling words you came up with when you were writing with your non-dominant hand, and you can either put them in the chat or you can unmute. Either way.
I can share.
Thank you, Julie.
I wrote, this feels awkward, uncomfortable, annoying, and messy.
Absolutely. Anyone else? Looks like chat, maybe.
Yeah, there's some in the chat.
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Mine was frustrating, hard, and long.
Absolutely. Takes much more time, right?
And the ones in the chat are awkward, tedious, frustrating, difficult, awkward, energy depleting, awkward, slow, inefficient. Yeah, those are the ones in the chat.
These are awesome. Okay, so let's switch gears. What were three of the words that came up when you were writing with your dominant hand?
I wrote, it's like a better fit. It flows and feels more natural.
Okay.
In the chat, we have, let's see, natural, easy, like me, familiar, easier, more productive, easy, normal, standard, more efficient, smooth, easy, still messy, but not as bad. Easy, smooth, and faster.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of easy, we've got a lot of normal, right? Versus the frustrating, awkward, hard, or challenging. So here's the question, why would I have you do this?
So we can understand what it feels like to be doing something that doesn't feel right for our body.
Yeah, absolutely.
My teenager walked through as we were doing this and said it was a great analogy. It was a great demonstration.
Well, thank you. Any other thoughts? I mean, Darcy pretty much nailed it, right? It's really, this is how our transgender youth feel, right? So if you are non-binary as well, right? If you had to walk through the world constantly having those feelings of how it felt to just simply write with your non-dominant hand, just imagine if, like, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, this is how you feel in your body, right? So yes, it's a simple exercise, and then but truly when you're in that space of like, I just don't get it, right? You're working with a student and you're not figuring it out. Take your pen and move it to your other hand and try to do something for a second and go, right. Okay, I can be more patient. I can be more open. I can be more understanding. Just super, super important, and really trying to, I mean, obviously that's not, we can't understand completely, but it will give us a little bit of more insight into like, okay, that's a lot of work. If I had to do, God, my whole day writing with my left hand, I would feel like, forget this. I am tired. And, and now we think about, okay, that's why that student just checked out, because this is challenging. So we have to create that safe space in our classrooms. And the lucky job that we have as physical education teachers and health teachers is that that's our focus, right? Is how do we connect with these students and create these safe spaces for them? So how can we do it in PE? here are the things that came to my mind, and I'm going to ask you in a second to add to this. I might have missed some, so you might have ideas for you. Just thinking about locker room use, right? That's huge. Bathroom use. Think about if every time you had to go to the bathroom, it felt like writing with your left hand or non-dominant hand, like, oh. Dressing out on top of just like walking in the door, now the whole act of dressing out. Specific activities, aquatics, right? Swimming for our students that are transgender or non-binary is just really taxing. Dance or wrestling. And I'm sure there's other activities I may have forgotten. So if there's things that you're thinking of, please give me a second and then add to it.
Sports are very gendered. All
Yeah.
athletics are gendered.
Right. Our physical fitness test, which is on hold partly because of this, but this is a huge deal, right? And then I'm going to say teams in terms of sports, but also teams, if we make teams for our, whatever standard we're teaching, we need to be mindful of how those teams are selected. So here's my question to you all. What am I missing? What might be some other things that that we should add? I couldn't have gotten.
How about the way we address our class?
Oh, okay. So give me an example of what you mean.
So if I'm greeting my second period class, hey guys, how you doing?
Thank you very much. Yes. So we gender all the time, right? And I am constantly trying to be aware, and I still use the term guys, and it drives me bananas. And I'm working on it, right? So if we could, ideas, and you may all throw in the chat other ideas, good morning, second period class, good morning, students. I have a colleague that refers to all of the students as scholars, folks. I don't know, what are other greetings that we could use?
I use their grade level. So, good morning, 6th grade, good morning, 7th grade. I use that one too.
Okay.
There's some answers in the chat too. Let's see, humans, friends, y'all, peeps.
Absolutely. Is any time that we can just take gender out of it, we need to, right? That's the main takeaway, right? People are like, well, we could just say boys and girls, that's everyone. No, it's not. There's that, it's very fluid. So that even, that's binary. So we need to be cognizant of that all the time. Okay, so next question, what ideas do you have on how we can be supportive? So what can we do, thinking about these topics on the left-hand side, what can we do to set up a more inviting and accepting environment?
Someone said gender neutral language.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I know I'm personally at a loss just because I apologize. My dogs just ran out. Because I was itinerant elementary PE and didn't have to deal with when I only saw them once a week for an hour in groups of 90. So, and have gone to middle school now, but all virtual. So I don't know the answers to these because I guess I'll find out this fall. So.
Yeah, well, the law, so I don't know everyone's state law. The law in California is students are able to use the bathroom and locker room, right there, that they identify with, right? So if we have a student who on our attendance or whatever the district thing is, it says that their sex is female, but they identify as male, they are allowed to use the male locker room and the male bathroom. And when I say allowed, they they should be given the opportunity. It is up to those students. We have to make sure, because this education is not just for us as adults, but we have to create this environment where students, for the most part, in my experience, they don't care as much as we do as adults, but people get caught up on it. So it's not like, oh, anyway, so they have by law the right to use locker rooms and bathrooms with the gender they identify with. I highly recommend that you look at your ed code and your district to make sure that you are complying and supporting. How about with activities?
How do they deal with, how does a non-binary student deal with gendered bathrooms when they aren't specific to one or the other, and those are the only options, and locker rooms as well? Those are the only options offered.
Yes, this is where our work begins.
This
right?
is a question that this one has right here.
Yeah, this is a question that so prior to my current role, which is high school PE, an independent study, I was our health and PE TOSA, TK12 for our district. And this was specifically one of the things I was working on is we need to have a gender neutral changing area, bathroom, and not in a place that is where people walk. Like it doesn't need to be 40 yards across the field and like, oh, you go to the other one, right? Like that's not helpful. That's not, so, but districts move slowly. So we have to be those squeaky wheels, right? We have to be the advocates for our students and not put it on our students that are trying to navigate so many things and then say, well, now you're going to be the voice for this too. This is us. This is us as adults need to do this work. I don't have an answer right now, unfortunately, because that's the situation that we're in. But not going to the bathroom is a horrible way to spend your day, right? Like I'm not going to drink any water, so I don't have to go to the bathroom. So yes, we can also set things in place with access to other gender neutral bathrooms or something that might be staffed. But that again, I kept harping on my district, like that's still other. Like, yes, it's safer maybe, but that's still other. So the work has to really be done in building or just changing the signs on the it's not, I don't think it'd be that hard to change some signs, but there's a lot of adults that we need to educate. Shifting to, let's think about aquatics or dance or wrestling. How could we make that palatable, if you will?
Well, I remember I did an observation with you, Courtney, where we went to a high school and they had the social dance, and they matched up a male and a female, and there was a larger number of males, so they all sat to the side. This was like the worst example ever.
What not to do.
Yeah, and then I don't know how they did the pairing at the other high school we went to, but everybody had a partner. And I don't know if they let the students choose. I don't know if you know that or how they did the pairing there, but everybody had a partner. And if there was an odd number, sometimes they had two partners.
Right. So. Stephanie, were you going to add?
I was going to add a personal experience. So when I went to high school, one of the units, or, you spent a week in dance and a week in wrestling. And I remember begging my PE teacher, Mr. Cornell, I don't want to do dance. Can you just put me in wrestling? It's not bad. I have a buddy over here that wants to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if it was the law, but I had to do the dance for the week. And I was just so upset. And I was, now looking back at that experience, how hard would it be to have a choice? Okay, those of you that want to learn wrestling, whoever you are, go to the wrestling for 1 week, and vice versa. Go to the dance for the week, no matter who you are.
I can give you a challenge to that because we did try that idea. Unfortunately, many students still will then, while I taught middle school, oh, here's an opportunity to bully this student that just chose the kind of gender non-conforming, these girls just went to wrestling. Oh, and now there's all this talk, or these boys just went to tennis and whatever, right? So the workaround was, if we're going to separate, well, number one, we should never separate, right, based on gender, but we do a rotation where everybody's wrestling, everybody's dancing, everybody, you know, like, and ideally it's, what standard are we meeting, right? There are dance standards we need to meet. Can we do it? Many of them we can do without a partner. The way that they did it, Julie, at that other school was just A's and B's. And so A was the leader and B was the follower. It doesn't matter if you're male or female or whatever. You just took that role because it was social dance and there had to be leads and follows. But I also don't like that term, right? Like, this is the leader and this is the follower for other reasons, right? Outside of gender. So we have to be, but A's and B's makes it really easy. You choose your partner. All right, I'm A, and we just move on. Any thoughts about it? Oh, go ahead, Julie.
Well, I was going to ask Stephanie, you know, what was it about dance that you didn't like? Because if as Courtney said, if everybody does a week of wrestling and everybody does a week of dance, could the thing that was uncomfortable for you be addressed? Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it very well could have been. I feel like, you know, at that point in time in my life, I was just like not a dancer. I've always been a tomboy. Like, I've always wanted to, like, you know, get in on the action. I played soccer all my life, so wrestling just was more appealing to me than dance was. And I knew all the dance girls who, you know, were part of the dance team at the school would lead it, and they would all have a little small group that would give you the steps to the dance or the choreography. And that just wasn't me. It didn't feel like me. So that's where the begging came in, but it didn't work.
Well, and that also sounds like maybe just some stronger teaching where we recognize things where a peer group may be intentionally or unintentionally making others not feel welcome in the group, right? So as a teacher, how do you adjust that, right? The aquatics one, those of you that are high school, comes up a lot. Just, I mean, imagine not feeling like you are the gender that you were assigned, right? Or the sex that you were assigned at birth. And now you're supposed to get into a bathing suit and get into a pool. Like, I will tell you, one of a colleague said, well, they can just wear a shirt. I was like, oh, well, that's going to be really comfortable once it's wet. Like, this is no. So can we do a workaround? Can we do dry land? Can we do independent study? Can we do something where the standards are met, but we're not humiliating this student, right? This is, we're here to, I feel like we have the best class in school, right? So our class should be the one that everyone wants to come to. But if we're doing all of these things that are not creating that safe space, we are, I had a student that I ended up working with who was doing fine until aquatics came up in PE. He was doing fine in all his classes. And then aquatics came up. He ended up going from all A's and B's to F's and not coming to school anymore, simply because there is no way in heck he was putting on a bathing suit and getting in the pool with his peers. Like, so he just skipped school altogether and done. The suicide rate is so high. This is so important that we really need to make sure that we're on it. Physical fitness testing, as I said, it's being worked on right now. For ideas, does anyone have ideas or have you done things in the past to be more inclusive of all genders? I have ideas, but I want to hear from you all as well. Anything in the chat? Yeah.
I'll just say real quick. So when I was teaching elementary PE a couple of years ago, when we do fitness testing, because we do it throughout the year, but we use it as a means for goal setting. So my students could pick whichever goals they wanted. They didn't have to be gender specific on that. And, you know, when they do the testing, that's what gets inputted into the computer. But as far as their personal goals, it didn't matter what they chose.
Nice. Yeah, I think one of the key things is, in all activities that we do is never separating like, okay, boys are testing today and girls are playing basketball or whatever it is, right? Like, I know it's for many of us, that's like, of course, but I'm just going to say it because it scares me that that might still happen. And it's probably not you, but a colleague or something you've seen. How do we need to be, as I said, we need to be the voice for our students. One thing you can also do is pick like the highest standard. So say, I'm going to try to pull the numbers off the top of my head. So say push-ups. 11-year-old girls have to do 7 push-ups to pass, 12 to be fabulous, right? Boys, I think, have to do 10 to pass and 20 to be fabulous. So if we said, okay, all of us are trying to get 10, right? If we did that for each one, like for the sit and reach where the girls is harder than the boys, well, everyone's trying to get 10 inches, not 9. So then later on, when it's actually test time, it's like, oh, I only had to do, but you've been working towards the higher goal, right? And just, I think degendering it as much as possible when we're doing, as you were saying, Darcy, like the practice tests and the lead ups and all of that. And then in the end, if they want to know exactly where they fall, they can look at the specific, but I'm hoping that when the test comes back out, it should just be a genderless test if we can get there. We'll see. Did you have something else, Darcy? I didn't.
No, we're just giving a big thumbs up on a genderless test.
Okay. And then teams, as we said, really just making sure that it's about, when we're doing teams, it's about skill level, not about gender. It's about standards, not about a unit or a tournament or, that sort of thing. And then knowing that the law is, again, this is California law, but students who identify as female, no matter what, are allowed and should be encouraged to try out for the girls team of whatever sport it is that they like. So, and same obviously for boys. So by law, that's supposed to happen. In practice, that's where the work needs to come in. So my final real question to you all is, what might you need to do to ensure that the supports that we talked about actually get put in place?
I think we could, like you said, at our sites, we have to be proactive, find that non-gender space where people can change, and then promote getting that, designated as that, not the other, but, actually designated as, I don't know. I'll be hitting you up, Courtney, to find out what it should be designated or how, I see that, but that might be a good option.
Agree.
I feel like just starting with a conversation with the admin and asking what their plan is. And then if they don't have one, trying to open that discussion and seeing what you can come up with and how it can be addressed and find out how open they are to it, so that you know how much you're going to need to do moving forward.
Absolutely.
I have 9 school sites.
Oh, geez.
But now I want to address this with all of them.
So you can have a big impact. And I'm curious, how do people, like I said, I'm new to middle school. What's a good way to gather preferred pronouns at the beginning of the year?
Are you asking?
I do a Google form is easy. Like a get to know you activity, and it's just not focusing on pronouns. It could be like a few questions just to get to know your students.
And that's one of your questions then?
Yes, like
Okay.
it's just like your name, your preferred pronoun. Yeah, I could send you my get to know you, Julie.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah, I also want to say in California, because of the new laws like 218, schools have to actually show that they're doing trainings for all staff, and this is brand new. And they're doing webinars for all the different counties and trainings for all like like regional counties, but this is really important. If you check out the California CDE website, it has all LGBT resources. I've been working with the CDE, so I'm like so excited, you know, that we're talking about this, and hopefully you can utilize that page, because I know many of my colleagues have been working hard on putting great resources together and trainings this year.
Awesome. Going back to the questionnaire, if you will, also depending on the age that you're working with, right? You may need to, like, for example, I go by Miss Miller and use she, her pronouns, or, you know, just depending on age. I will tell you from this past year, I did this with my students and, you know, via Zoom. And, you know, gender expression and gender identity are different. And so I had a student, it was so worthwhile in me doing this. I had two, you know, many of the students were, as you might assume, right? And then I had a student who presented, if you will, gender expression was much more female. And then pronouns were she, they. And that for me, and I'm part of the community, was like, wait, I need to back up. Wait, she, they, she, not she, her. Okay. This, like, sometimes I don't feel 100% she. Sometimes, you know, and I just needed, and it was an amazing conversation. And it just made that experience and our connection that much stronger. And then I had another student who said, he, him right now, but that might change. So I'll let you know if it does. I was like, awesome. Like, you know, I would never have known that if I hadn't just done a quick, you know, roundabout of who are you? This is who I am. And like, that was part of, as we were just saying, like, that was just part of the questions, but it opened the door to a much more rich conversation and a safer environment for all.
Were these group discussions or more one-on-one discussions?
This was my full class. Well, my, you know, my classes are small, but still it was my full class.
One of the best comments I've ever heard was an adult friend who said, "Gender is my playground." I thought that was a cool statement.
Right? Why do we care so much? Okay. So, oops, that's not what I wanted to do at all. Let me move all my, that's going to pull up, there's a link. So as I said, I'm going to share this presentation with you all. What I kind of want to leave you with, that's my cell phone number, that's my email. You can email me, you can text me, you can call me. If you have questions, if you have ideas, I'd love to continue to support you and myself as we really work to protect all of our students. And as this is the main thing over here, all students, every single student that we have benefit when we are intentional about creating a safe space for our transgender and non-binary students. This isn't this is just for the small minority, right? This benefits everybody, including the adults in the room. So we just need to be intentional about it. One of the things that I was thinking, like, what can you do to, you know, start the conversation? That simple, write with your non-dominant hand. You could do that with your students as a like team building, and then have the conversation. It can be about gender. You can add that in. It can also just be that simple, like, we're not bullying, because I want you to think about right now, your strength could be basketball, right? And we're learning how to dribble and evade a defender. And you feel confident. That feels like the pen is in your dominant hand, right? But Sally over here is like, I'm an amazing swimmer. This basketball thing feels like this pen's in my non-dominant hand. Like, pause as the person that feels confident and recognize not everybody's in that same space. And so I feel like you can use that non-dominant, dominant hand activity to really have a rich conversation about how all of PE is going to be, right? Like, school might be someone's jam, every class, they love it. And then school is totally not this other student's jam. It's as soon as they get here, the pencil's in their left hand, or I should say non-dominant hand, right? Like, and just giving our kids the like, okay, I need to be more empathetic of what might be happening for others. So in wrapping up, I just want to say thank you all for taking the time and for contributing so much. I am not reading the chats, but I see the numbers going up, so I appreciate all the input. Darcy, I appreciate your student joining us as well. And I really hope that, if you have questions, thoughts, let's continue this work. It's so important.
We didn't have very many people here. Can we make sure that everyone at the conference has to watch this? Because they all need it, and they probably know less about this than they do about the other sessions they're watching. I just want to say that.
Yeah,
I think this should be required content.
This is being recorded, and it will be on the EPEW-CP.Weebly website, so people can have access to it. So you can just share that info.
Okay.
It will also be on our YouTube channel as well. So if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you can send that link to anyone and everyone.
Careful, the cell phone numbers on there. No, I'm just kidding.
Everybody will be calling Courtney. Well, Courtney, thank you so much. And this was amazing information and much needed information. And thank you to everybody who came today and participated in the discussion. And as I said, you'll have access to this and Courtney's resources at a later date. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Courtney, thank you for doing this. Thank you for putting it together, because I really do. I know how much this is needed because we are experiencing this.
Yeah.
Thank you for attending the 48th Annual Elementary Physical Education Workshop. We're glad you were here.
Please follow us on our social media platforms. EPEW can be found on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
Please check out our website for links to more great sessions. Just go to epew-cp.weebly.com and click on the virtual EPEW 2021 tab at the top and scroll down.
EPEW 2021 Educators Assemble would not be possible without the support and dedication from the amazing EPEW committee. The committee has been hard at work for months preparing for this workshop. Thank you to Linda McGee, Barbara Gratton, Scott Wilson, Stephanie Sandino, Julie Miller, Jessica Monlux, Kayla Ailman, Shelby Lozano, Andrea Chavez, Scott Townsend, and Cindy Chase.
Thank you for attending EPEW, where our motto is, come to learn, leave as family.